Welcome to the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Taylor, CEO and founder of Creative Raven, the firm that helps wastewater industry contractors and manufacturers unlock the power of digital marketing, AI, and PR to boost sales and opportunities. Whether it's through our online marketing and lead generation programs or providing a fully outsourced marketing department, we are passionate about helping businesses in the wastewater and civil infrastructure sectors not just survive, but thrive in today's digital world. Each episode, I'll be bringing you expert tips and strategies to help you grow and succeed. Let's dive in. Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. Today's episode is an oldie but goodie, something that we brought back out and dusted off the shelves from our years back when we first started the podcast. And I wanted to bring it to the forefront because it's an evergreen topic that in these days where everybody is looking for a way to effectively spend their marketing dollars and stretch them, I thought that this topic would be very, very timely. So I hope you enjoy this special rebroadcast of the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. Hi again, and we're still here at the Grand Canyon, but when the two of us get together, we're just, great minds think alike, and we just came up with another topic that we know you're definitely going to be interested in.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So, in case you're not sure where you are listening to the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. And this episode, we are going to be talking about how to get some positive publicity and PR, that is. Had you? I know you're wondering, oh my gosh, is this really racy? Well, so no. But PR is near and dear to both of our hearts. And one thing that we want to share with you about PR, and you may not know this, is that of all of the marketing mediums that you could choose, PR has the highest return on investment, is evergreen, and can be used in so very many ways. Bill Gates once stated, if I were down to my last marketing dollar, I'd spend it on PR. And so what does that tell you? So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Mary Shafer, resident content and PR director for Creative Raven. And we're going to talk about how PR is actually less expensive than you think it is, with a higher return, as we just mentioned, and how it's not a one-off deal. We should never be creating content that is what we consider one and done, and how it can really be utilized in so many different ways, like we talked about in our last podcast about digital marketing. And PR is just another leg for that. And so now when we talk about the digital footprint, there are three prongs to this stool to keep it steady. One is a strong website. The second is your content and your social media presence. And the third is PR and where you are being seen in the media. So, Mary, all yours.
Well, my background is in publications, and so I actually was on the other side of this. I often was functioning as an editor who received press releases or news releases from companies who wanted to get their story out. And often I was the one that decided what got published and what didn't. So I know pretty well what people are looking for in a press release or news release. Press release is a dated term, obviously, because very few newspapers even exist anymore, but that's where they started. And the reason we say it's less expensive is that A, you can create a press release yourself, or someone in your company can do it. It's not a highly specialized form of communication. You want somebody that at least spells fairly well and can construct a coherent sentence and has a pretty good command of the English language. And really knows your business. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of specialized talent that you need to create these. There are accepted formats, standard formats, which you can learn by just looking online. Just Google standard press release format or standard news release format. And you'll get tons of templates, and sometimes they'll want to have you give them your email address. Don't do that. There's plenty of free ones out there. The format has evolved over the years because of digital media, but it's not all that different, and we're not going to get into that right now. But it's just to say you don't need to hire somebody with specialized skills to do this unless you feel like it. Whereas if you're doing an ad, you have to hire somebody that knows how to produce an ad for whatever medium. It might be print, it might be digital, and they have to know what they're doing, because if they turn in something that is not usable, you've spent bad money. The biggest reason it's cheaper is that if you send out, let's just use a side-by-side comparison. Okay, let's say that you're going to do a full page. Let's be even more realistic. Let's say you're going to do a half-page ad in a trade magazine. Depending upon what magazine you're running in, you might pay $3,000 for that spot, or you might pay more. But let's just say $3,000. That's just for the space. Now you're going to have to pay someone to produce your ad, which means you're going to have to deal with a writer, a copywriter, a layout person, and possibly somebody that, wants to fine tune it or has to do art for it. You're going to have to pay for the photography, whether it's stock or, somebody has to come take pictures of your stuff. So now you're probably looking at, by the time all is said and done, you're probably looking at least $5,000 to $6,000 for that ad, and that's before it even runs. That's just getting to there. Now it runs, and it may or may not perform. Marketing is an art and a science. It's a craft. Hopefully you're having it performed by people that know what they're doing, but there's never a guarantee it's going to work. There's a number of reasons it might take off like a bat, and there's other reasons it might just tank. You just don't know. But press releases are very different because, number one, it's just written. It's always better if you provide a photograph with it. A press release that's delivered with a photograph, a usable, clear, clean, sharp, well-lit photograph, is 50% more likely to get published. Secondly, the first person you have to sell on getting that published is the editor. Actually, these days, it might even be an underling. It might just be somebody that's doing the email for that editor, and that person has been trained about what kind of stuff is absolutely going in the circular file right away and may or may not ever get past them to the editor. So, but let's just say you're shooting for the editor. Well, once the editor looks at your press release and decides, you know what, this really is kind of interesting for our readership, I think we'll run this. Now, they almost certainly will edit it for length and sometimes for clarity. One thing I guarantee you they're going to edit is if you make your press release sound like an ad, they're going to throw it away. So any money that you have invested in that is going to go down the tubes. Your press release cannot sound like a commercial. Your press release needs to sound like news. And if the editor decides it's news, guess what? The readers will agree, yes, this is news. The editor clearly thinks this is news. And guess what that does? Getting that editor's imprimatur, getting their thumbprint of approval on your piece gives it credibility that you cannot buy for any amount of money. Whereas if someone's reading an ad, think about the way you read. When you read an ad, you know you're reading an ad. Someone paid to have that put in there. They can pretty much say anything they want unless it's so egregiously false, although these days anything seems to go. But generally with our trade magazines, we know for a fact because we work with them, they are pretty good about making sure that the content you get in your ads is realistic and factual. But it's still an ad. You're paying to say it, so it has a certain level of credibility. But when you get the credibility of an editor saying that the news you want to share is indeed industry news, now your claims have a whole different level of credibility with people. So they're taking this in with that. And not only that, they've now dropped that filter that they have when they're looking at an ad that makes them want to go, yeah, I don't know. They could say anything they want. Now they start really looking and saying, this really is happening, or wow, that sounds like a pretty good piece of equipment. But here's the deal. You can't just say, hey, we got this great piece of equipment and you should buy this and this should be in your shop. No, what you do is you do a press release about, say, a case study of a project you're working on now or that you just completed. And you say, I'm going to let Suzanne tell you there's a certain formula for this that you use for a case study. It's very simple and very effective.
And that is problem, solution, result. And so it's an overview of what you came in, what was the pain point of your customer, and then you go through the nuts and the bolts of exactly what you did from A to Z.
That's your solution.
And that's your solution. And then the outcome. What were the results? How did the customer feel about it? And where they're going to go from here. Are they going to hire you to do more things? What else is going to happen? Or now that you've tested it out, where do you think it might have some additional applications? Now, here's an inside trick that we're sharing just because we know. We are both staff writers for the kingpin, I consider, of our industry. Some other editors and publications may not like us saying that. But we work for 5 of the major publishing company, not publishing, but magazine publications in the industry. They are always hungry for case study stories and profiles about your customer, how you've helped them. Obviously, the story gets wrapped around the customer and what they're doing proactively for their business. Or if you're a contractor, what you've done in your business to become successful so that your peers may learn from that.
Right.
And that's called a contractor profile.
Right. We want to talk about why those get published. And that's because the editor is looking for something that's of value to readers. You read these magazines. What do you go for first? You want to go for the things where you can learn, if I do this, I can be successful like these people being profiled. Or if we do this kind of project, this is what we can expect. You will learn. There's value there for you. So if you can put a story out there that gives equal value to your peers, it becomes valuable to the editor. And one of the tricks we've learned fairly recently, maybe in the last several years, is that the one place you're allowed to put a little tiny commercial is at the bottom of your press release. You get it like a paragraph to say, XYZ company is located in blah, blah, blah location, and they're known for blah, blah, blah. You know, you can just put a little, and we call that boilerplate. And the reason that's down there is they're not going to probably put that in the story. In fact, almost certainly not. It's there to tell the editor, hey, these people are legit. They have credibility. Right. It's a real company. And yeah, you can call and verify facts on this story if you need to, because you give contact information in there. And your website, and sometimes they will put that in the story. And hello, if you've paid to have a website produced, wouldn't you love it if people actually come to see it?
Now, getting back to those publications, here's another inside tip. You can actually get free coverage. That's the beauty of PR. Mm-hmm. You don't want to write it, you can contact a staff writer, and the magazine picks up the tab.
Yeah, and remember when we talked about that half-page ad that cost you $3,000? This costs you nothing. Nothing for a more credible piece of information. What is not beautiful about that? And remember again, send it in with a photograph, a good, clear, professional looking. It doesn't have to be professionally done. It has to look professional. It has to be clear, sharp focus, good contrast, good color. Don't have people in the sun with their heads being blown out by a sunspot on their forehead. Try to, and like this, how you're seeing my reflection in my glasses, try to avoid those kinds of things, because what they want to do, that's a whole page or a whole part of a page that they needed to fill with good content, and you just gave them something visually interesting. I guarantee you could have the best press release in the world, and if they need a visual on that page, it isn't going to be your press release that they put in. It'll be maybe a lesser quality press release that came with a picture. So
the pictures a good quality photograph, infographics, or anything are the things that can make it or break it. It's just like when we talk about that a lot on photography for websites, is that is the one area. Never skimp on your photography for your website. It is and your content too, but really your visuals.
Yep.
Because the web is a visual medium, and that is the one thing that will lose you sales faster than anything, is if the site does not have a good user experience and the visuals are poor.
And here's another one, since we've been talking about case studies, equipment manufacturers. If you are actually having one of your clients send in a case study, please do not send them the sales literature photograph of your piece of equipment. Please show your piece of equipment in the field of the actual project you're writing about.
Right.
That's what they want to see, because they want an action photo. They want to see your equipment in action being used. Put a person in there, human interest. I guarantee you, you put at least one person in a shot, you've doubled its chances of making it into a publication. They want people to see humans so they can relate to themselves in that article, because then it becomes almost like a human interest story. But not every press release is a case study, but we're just telling you as an inside tip, if you can create case studies
or profiles
that really are about the people or the project and not your product or service. Your product or service is ancillary. It doesn't matter.
It gets woven in.
Right.
It always gets woven into the story. Right.
It doesn't have to be about you. It has to just be with you, or you have to be in there. It's equally as impressive. And in fact, going back to the tooting your own horn thing, it doesn't look like you're tooting your own horn because an editor put that in there and they said, hey, these people are news.
Now, in some publications, they will have a staff writer that will help you to write it. In some cases, if there's other magazines, some technical journals, they don't offer that service. And if you really, really want to be in that and you don't feel comfortable writing it, then work with a professional writer. Let them interview you. Let them interview your customer. And then give you the, of course, you're going to get to see the draft. We do that all the time. Now, when the publication picks it up, understand that that's an exclusive. So you're going to have the rights to use that and promote it, that you were featured in that magazine, but you will not be able to take that article and pitch it to other industry publications or general news as a rule.
However, you can take that piece and you can give it to a writer and say, this was our press release. Could you actually write up an original story about this? And now that's a brand new piece of material,
right?
And you can reuse it as based on kind of a thing,
right? And pitch it out to other publications,
right?
Now, if you are approached by a publication, and I see this quite often, where they say, "Oh, we want to write a story about you," and then they ask you for money. That is advertorial, not editorial. All right. If you want to do that, go ahead and spend that money if that's the way. But do note that will be perceived by the reader as a paid ad.
Yeah.
It might be interesting content, but it's paid. So it doesn't carry the unbiased credibility of a true editorial piece.
That's correct.
And
this is not to say that they're not valuable in
right,
some
they
ways.
are valuable in some ways.
And especially if you're talking about things like new technology,
right.
There's sometimes, like, if a new technology hasn't been used yet, you don't have, a case study, but you can kind of conjecture about that, or kind of, those are legit, and that there's reasons to do that, but we're not going to get into all that today. We just want to talk about PR. One of the things you should be doing with any of your news releases is repurposing it in all different ways, but the big one has to happen. You should, on your website, have a news page, like a newsroom, and that press release should go up there. Now, what's that going to do for you? Couple of things. It's not really going to sell anything or be very proactive. It's going to be kind of passively there, because let's say down the road you have a case study and one of the editors of the magazine said, you know what, I really think this is a good story. I think we'd like to develop this into a profile. We would actually like to send out one of our writers to interview these people and maybe go on site at the project, whatever. But they want to see, make sure you're legit. So they're going to go back and look at your website, and they're going to go to your newsroom because they want to see what you've been doing. And if you don't have anything up there, you don't have any way to convince them you're more legit than if you were just Joe Blow walking in through the door. But if you have those news releases posted on your newsroom, now they're going to see that, A, you're a serious company, you understand what it means to get good PR, they know that you'll be willing to work with them in a way that is helpful to them, all kinds of things that just add up to a good thing for you. So let's talk a little bit about what happens with PR, where you can have an ad that's a one-off, although that's not a good practice either, but it can happen. And you can have a one-off PR, but there's going to be limited value there. What you really want to do, if you're going to have a successful PR program, is to have a whole campaign. Like, you have rules. Like, every time we have a new product, we issue a new product release. That's one kind of news release. Now, every time we get a new client, we ask them up front, would you please let us know when you're going to use this so we can come out and take pictures for a case study? Great. If you're somebody that is a contractor, okay, Suzanne and I are both going to tell you this over and over and over again. The one most valuable thing you can have when you send your guys into the field in a crew to do work is make sure one of them has a camera. And they all have cameras in their pocket because it's their phone. Again, this does not have to be professional photography. It just has to make good quality photographs that are clear and you can understand what's going on. If you're sending people out on a job site and you do not record some of what you do, not necessarily video, but why not? It's a great medium, but at least still photos, you are leaving money on the table. Period, end of story. This is not anything you can argue about. If you are not using that time in the field to grab some images of what you're doing, you are absolutely leaving money on the table. And it's all this kind of money that's actually leveraged money because you're not spending anything to get it, as we've explained. So you want to budget for that. You want to plan for it. You want to resource it with those people with the cameras. Whatever you need to put that in. It's not a big deal to do it. Sit down, at the end of the year between Christmas and New Year's, if you work at all, take a day, write out your PR plan, make sure whoever needs to know about it, and we'll implement it and task them with that responsibility. The elements of a solid PR program are kind of what we just talked about. Decide what's newsworthy, be realistic. I mean, some people will send in inane things and literally, I can guarantee you, editors sit in the office and laugh at that. They do. We've done it 100 times. And then the big thing, and this is huge. We talked in our last podcast about the value of social media. And all of that is true, but here's the one thing that's not great about social media. It depends on you leveraging the existence of someone else's, what would you call it, format or platform. It might be Facebook, it might be, whatever. But you don't own that. You don't own that platform. Please, whatever you do, do not build the entirety of your public relations or advertising on someone else's platform, because if somebody has to go to jail and everything falls apart, or they just go under for some reason or another, your entire platform is gone. So you want to make sure that you own the majority of the ways that you reach your clients. And that means you want to have a good newsletter that goes out digitally, and you want to build an opt-in mailing list, because then you own your program and it belongs to you. And no matter what happens to these other places, you still have a way to get your news out. That's something we counsel people on all the time, how to build a list. If you don't know how to build it, we'll build it for you. There are other people that do this. Just please make sure this is a plan and you own your own list, because if you don't, you do not own your publicity program. I think that pretty much covers it.
Wraps it up. I mean, there's a lot of little tips and tricks and how-tos that we could talk about, and I probably will bring that to the surface on another podcast as it relates to the digital footprint. And so until next time, thanks again for joining us and being with the DooDoo Divas on the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. And so until next time,
keep it
flowing. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take your marketing to the next level and start increasing sales and opportunities for your business, reach out to us at Creative Raven. We're here to help you thrive in the digital landscape. Visit creativeraven.com or click the link in the show notes below to schedule a call and learn how we can support your growth. If you enjoyed the insights on today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Until next time, keep growing and keep it flowing.